Okay, so we've made it to the end of September, and now we're going to talk about what I read. This is only 11 right here, but I have four that I listened to. So in the month of September, I read 15 books, and I'm pretty sure that's the highest amount that I've done this year so far. So I have my little notebook to help me remember what order and what I rated them. So the first one, of course, is T. Kingfisher, Hemlock and Silver. So this is a dark and enchanting retelling of Snow White. And in T. Kingfisher fashion, of course, there's horror, there's gruesome, but it's a really good story. I have loved everything that I've read of T. Kingfisher so far. Now, the next one we had was Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I cannot say her last name. There is the book. And this was actually with our Page to Screen Patreon group with Chris and Mads. It is a classic Gothic novel, and personally, it felt very menacing and anxiety inducing as I was reading it. I do feel like the adaptations that I watched, which was the 2020 version and the 1940 version, which was Alfred Hitchcock, did not do the book justice, but they were good in their own adaptations. So I gave that a 4.5 star for the read. Now, the next one I have is Artificial Wisdom by Thomas Weaver. This is the first book in a techno thriller genre. That's the first time that I've ever really read that, and I've enjoyed it. This was our in real life book club pick, and he published it himself last year, but this year he wound up getting picked up and was traditionally published, and it is such a good read. Can AI lead the world, and what are the implications of media like the news and social media being hacked and given a narrated view of what everyone should feel? So that kind of hit close to home. It's something that's spewed out on social media. It's very easy not to fact check, even though you could fact check very easily, but you also have those, like Google has AI now, and to me it feels like it's trying to give you the opinion you should have instead of you looking for it. So, anyways, I gave it a 5 star. There was some things that I felt like could have been done a little bit better, but I read the indie version. I did not read the version that I had right here because I had it on my Kindle and I let somebody borrow the book for book club. So I am going to go back and read the 5 chapters that he added and see the difference and see if that might factor in. So the next one I have is Fool's Errand by Robin Hobb. This is the first book of the Tawny Man trilogy, and I'm back in with Fitz and the Fool and Night Eyes and all that group at Buckkeep, and it's wonderful. It was wonderful. I definitely cried during it because there are some characters that you won't see after this one, but it was great. 5 star, absolutely. The next one I have is The Darkening by Sunya Mara, and I gave it 4.5 stars. It is a YA duology, and it felt YA. It did. There's a storm that's fed by magic, and it's consuming the city that, what is the main character's name? Vesper. Vesper Vale. So she's trying to stop the storm. But it was good. 4.5 stars. It was definitely, you felt YA, but I enjoyed it. That was my Spin the Wheel physical TBR, and that's a book that I've had for several years. So I'm glad I got to finish that one. Now, the next ones that I had were Jade War and Jade Legacy, and I listened to those. And I did read the first book, Jade City, and these are by Fonda Lee. And I gave Jade City 5 stars. I enjoyed that one. Now, Jade War, I gave it 4.5 stars, and Jade Legacy, I gave 4.25 stars. That does not mean that my enjoyment was not there. My enjoyment was probably a 3 for the last two books, but that does not mean that they were not well written. The characters were very well rounded. The plot and the setting were great. It just, there wasn't enough plot for me because it felt like a character study in a family that is multi generational, and it's organized crime, it's clan wars. So to me, the plot was over decades over generations of people, not in one cohesive unit to me. But that does not mean it was not well written. And I think you would love it if you wanted a character study on people and families that are not perfect, that they're not inherently good or inherently evil. Good people can do evil things, and bad people can do good things. So there was times where I really felt for some of the characters, but then I was like, how could you do that? So, but it is what it is. It wasn't my favorite. I probably won't ever reread them again, but I think that if you like a character development story, then it would be for you. The next ones I have are Arc of the Scythe series by Neil Shusterman. So I read Scythe, which I gave it 5 stars. And then Thunderhead, I gave 5 stars. And then The Toll, which is the final one in this trilogy, I gave it 3.5 stars. Now, this is a young adult dystopian trilogy, and it was really great in the first two. You could feel that humanity no longer has to die. So the only way that they can deal with population control is to have people named Scythes, that they are the ones that glean or they kill people at random or however they pick them. They have so many that they have to do, but between each conclave, and I think they do 3 conclaves a year, which is a meeting, a conference. It's a Scythe conference. If you've ever went to a conference for HR or your job and you have all of them talking and dealing with it's that. It's a conference. But and it probably wouldn't have felt like that if I wasn't an adult. If I was a teenager reading this or a young adult, it might not have felt that way. But it felt like a conference. So I just felt like the third book, it took the two main characters and they're not the main focus anymore. You have more characters that are come in, but they came in late. They came in the third book, and it just did not feel like you were reading the same books. It was didn't feel like it was quite in the series, but they were well written and I enjoyed them, and I can see why a lot of people love them. The next book I had was Wayward that I listened to by Amelia Hart. That is absolutely wonderful read for October, November. It is witchy. It's a historical fiction and it's perfect for the fall. You've got 3 different women in this family that and they're wayward. That's their name. And it's the course of their lifetime as they navigate love and their magic in their life. So I gave it a 4.5 star. I do wish I might have read it along with listening to it, but the narrators that they had 3 different narrators for each woman, and they were wonderful. They were so good. And I am very picky about my narrators. The next one I have is actually my October in Real Life book club pick. Blah 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 blah. And it's The Cliffs by J. Courtney Sullivan. I gave it a 3.25. It is fiction. It was okay. It was so this is what I wrote about it. A promising novel of family, secrets, ghosts, and homecoming set in Maine. That was that first little blurb. And I felt like, ooh, it's going to be great for that fall season. But it felt more of like an end of summer because part of it is happening during the summertime when everybody comes up to Maine and stays at the beach houses and, touristy. And it just didn't feel like it hit the mark. And it didn't feel like this is what I wanted to read at the time. It was well written. I did feel like the author was a little heavy handed with how she thought you needed to feel. And to me, when I read a book, unless it is black and white, I don't want you to tell me how I should feel. I don't want you to lead me to it. Let me do it. So that's just now the last 3 are the Solomons trilogy by Naomi Novik. I have the first one is The Daily Education. I give it 3.5 stars. The Graduate is the second book. I give 4.25. Yeah. I just did it backwards. Let's go. Okay. So the last books that I had for the month were the Scholomance trilogy by Naomi Novik. The first one is A Deadly Education, and I gave that 3.5 stars. The Last Graduate, I gave 4.5 stars. 4.25 stars. I'm sorry. And then The Golden Enclaves, which was 5 stars. Now, I do feel like Naomi took a little bit of time in the first book. It felt the main character is a woman, and she felt very young adult. Now, going back, I didn't realize it that they started when they were like 14, 15, in there when they come in to the school. So the Scholomance is a school where people with magic go, because if they don't, most of them will die when they're young kids, because you have this Maleficaria, which are monsters that would eat them. And some people have said that it's like Harry Potter. If you get the academia vibes and there's a school of magic, that's about as far as it is. It's dark academia. There are lots of death. There is gruesomeness. There is a female main character who is moody as all get out, and she is annoying in the first book. But you understand why by the second book, and by the third book, she has a character growth. And then the side characters, you actually get more in depth with them in the second and the third book. And I think that really fleshes out the story. So those would be perfect for October and November when you want to sit down in your little cozy space with your fall candle and your tea or your coffee. This would be a great one to read. And they were very quick. I finished all three of them in less than 4 days. So they're not like super chunky. So let me know what you read in September and what you're going to read in October. Bye.